On July 29, 2023, in the quiet town of Leongatha, Victoria, Erin Patterson invited her estranged in-laws and their spouses to a Sunday lunch at her home. The meal she prepared was a seemingly innocent beef Wellington. But within days, 3 of her guests were dead, and one was fighting for his life. The cause? A deadly toxin hidden in plain sight. Tonight, we delve into the chilling details of the Leongatha mushroom murders, a case that has left an indelible mark on Australia. Erin Trudy Patterson, an ordinary name, an ordinary woman, or so it seemed. Born on September 30, 1974, in Glen Waverley, Victoria, Erin's early life appeared unremarkable. She pursued a science degree at the University of Melbourne before switching to accounting. Later, she trained as an air traffic controller, graduating in 2001. Her career path was steady, her life seemingly stable. In 2007, she married Simon Patterson, an engineer at Monash City Council, and they relocated to Western Australia. There, Erin ran a second-hand bookshop in Pemberton while Simon worked for the local council. They had a son together, and Erin formed a bond with her in-laws, Don and Gail Patterson, sharing a love for science and literature. In 2015, the family moved to Conwarra, Victoria, to be closer to Simon's parents. Erin and Simon had a daughter, and Erin became acquainted with Heather and Ian Wilkinson, Simon's aunt and uncle, who were active in the local Baptist church. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Erin's relationship with Simon began to deteriorate after the birth of their first child. The couple underwent several short-term separations before reaching a financial settlement and long-term split in 2015. Despite their separation, they shared custody of their 2 children and maintained a cordial relationship, even going on holidays together. However, in 2022, their relationship soured further over a dispute regarding child support payments. Simon filed a tax return listing himself as single, making him ineligible for government child support payments. Erin argued that the $38 monthly payment was insufficient to cover their children's expenses, including a $360 medical bill. Simon claimed that government agencies advised him against making additional payments. Messages presented in court showed emotional exchanges between them, including disputes over family invitations and alleged illnesses. Erin claimed. Simon testified that their relationship had become toxic. On July 29, 2023, Erin Patterson invited her estranged in-laws, Don and Gail Patterson, along with Heather Wilkinson and her husband, Pastor Ian Wilkinson, over for a Sunday lunch. At first glance, this seemed like an attempt to rebuild family ties, to bring together people who hadn't been in the same room for a while. But what they didn't know was that this seemingly innocent family gathering would soon become the scene of a horror that none of them would escape unscathed. Erin, who was known for her culinary skills, decided to prepare one of her signature dishes, a homemade beef Wellington. This dish, rich with flavors, was served alongside a salad, wine, and other carefully prepared sides. But beneath the elegance of the meal was something far more dangerous. It wasn't the flavor that would linger in their memories. No. It was the devastating effects of what Erin had secretly added to the dish, the toxic death cap mushrooms. Death cap mushrooms, one of the deadliest species of fungi in the world, contain a potent toxin that attacks the liver and kidneys. A small amount, often undetectable to the eye, can cause death within days. And it was this seemingly innocent ingredient that would seal the fate of 3 family members. As the guests sat down at the table, there was nothing unusual about the atmosphere. Erin had always been known for her hospitality, and on the surface, this gathering appeared to be no different. But as the lunch went on, something was wrong. The guests began to feel ill. At first, it was subtle, a slight stomach discomfort. But soon the symptoms escalated, becoming severe. Nausea, vomiting, and crippling abdominal pain overtook them. Erin's former mother-in-law Gail and her former father-in-law Don began to show the worst signs. Both of them would die in the days that followed, their bodies succumbing to the toxic mushrooms. But why didn't Erin show any signs of sickness? Why was she seemingly unaffected? Could she have been immune, or was she simply playing her role as the concerned hostess a little too perfectly? The question looms, what did Erin know about those mushrooms that the others didn't? Was it an innocent mistake, or was this all part of a more calculated plan? If you're intrigued by this chilling tale, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll be diving deeper into the investigation, Erin's troubling past, and the shocking details that were uncovered during the trial. Don't miss the next part of this true crime story, because what happened after the lunch would change everything. Stay with us. The aftermath of Erin Patterson's fatal lunch unfolded with a chilling precision. Within 24 hours of consuming the beef Wellington, all 4 guests were hospitalized with severe symptoms. Doctors initially suspected gastroenteritis, but the rapid deterioration of the victim's health raised immediate concerns. By August 4, just 5 days after the meal, 3 of the victims, Don and Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson, had died. Despite receiving a liver transplant, Don Patterson succumbed to the poisoning. Only Ian Wilkinson survived, after a prolonged hospital stay. Erin Patterson, who had claimed to have eaten the same meal, presented herself at Leongatha Hospital on July 31, 2023, complaining of nausea and diarrhea. However, she discharged herself against medical advice after just 5 minutes, raising suspicions among healthcare professionals. A concerned doctor made a 000 call, prompting a police welfare check. Authorities later recovered the leftovers of the meal, which were examined by multiple experts. Further investigation revealed that Erin had purchased a Sunbeam Food Lab dehydrator in April 2023. CCTV footage showed her disposing of the device at the Kunwara transfer station on August 2, 2023, just days after the fatal lunch. The dehydrator was found to contain remnants of death cap mushrooms. Erin initially denied owning such a device but later admitted to using it to dry mushrooms. She claimed she discarded it in a panic after an alleged confrontation with her estranged husband, Simon Patterson, who accused her of using it to poison his parents. Digital evidence further implicated Erin. Investigators found online searches related to poisonous substances, including death cap mushrooms, on her devices. One Facebook post from 2020, which prosecutors referred to as the cat post, raised alarms. In the post, Erin claimed her cat had chewed on a wild mushroom and was vomiting. However, evidence suggested she never owned a cat, casting doubt on her claims. Prosecutors argued that the post indicated Erin's interest in poisonous mushrooms. Despite her claims of an accidental poisoning, Erin's actions and the evidence presented painted a different picture. The deliberate sourcing and preparation of the toxic mushrooms, the disposal of the dehydrator, and the misleading statements to authorities suggested premeditation. The question remained, what drove Erin Patterson to commit such a heinous act? Was it a desire for revenge, financial gain, or something more complex? The investigation had only begun to uncover the depths of her motives. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, one question lingered. Was Erin Patterson's calculated behavior the result of a troubled marriage, or was there a deeper, more disturbing reason behind her actions? The answers were waiting to be uncovered. As the investigation into the Leongatha mushroom poisonings unfolded, Erin Patterson's actions began to raise serious questions. On August 5, 2023, just days after the fatal lunch, Patterson was interviewed by Detective Senior Constable Stephen Eppingstall at Wonthaggi Police Station. In the recorded interview, Patterson denied ever foraging for mushrooms or owning a food dehydrator, statements that would later be proven false. Prosecutors argued that these lies were part of a deliberate cover-up. Detective Eppingstall confronted Patterson with inconsistencies in her story, questioning why she wasn't as severely affected by the same meal that proved fatal for others. Patterson claimed she invited the guests out of affection and emotional need, portraying herself as supportive family despite being estranged from her husband. However, her demeanor during the interview appeared calculated and evasive, raising suspicions about her involvement in the deaths. Further scrutiny revealed that Patterson had a history of preparing meals for her estranged husband, Simon Patterson, that resulted in severe illness. Simon testified that he had become seriously ill after consuming dishes such as penne bolognese, chicken korma curry, and a vegetable curry wrap, leading him to suspect that Patterson was poisoning him. He documented these incidents meticulously, yet no poison was ever found, and charges related to his allegations were later dropped. Additionally, Patterson's online behavior came under examination. She had joined a mushroom lovers Facebook group and had been actively searching for information about wild mushrooms, including the toxic death cap variety. This online activity suggested a deeper knowledge and interest in mushrooms than she had previously admitted. Despite her claims of an accidental poisoning, Patterson's actions and statements painted a different picture. Her inconsistent accounts, coupled with the evidence of prior poisoning incidents and her extensive knowledge of mushrooms, led investigators to conclude that the deaths were not accidental. The question remained, what drove Erin Patterson to commit such a heinous act? Was it a desire for revenge, financial gain, or something more complex? On the surface, Erin Patterson's story seemed plausible, a tragic mistake, an unfortunate accident. But as the investigation unfolded, a much darker picture began to emerge. Was this truly an accident, or had something more calculated been lurking beneath the surface? When the authorities began their investigation, it didn't take long for the first unsettling details to surface. The bodies of Gail and Don Patterson, as well as Heather Wilkinson, had been rushed to the hospital after they fell violently ill. Initially, the cause was unclear. But as the medical team worked to stabilize the survivors, they made a disturbing discovery. The symptoms matched those of a highly toxic substance, death cap mushrooms. But how had these mushrooms ended up in Erin Patterson's kitchen? Had she knowingly prepared a fatal meal? Or was this an unintentional error, an innocent misstep? As investigators began to piece together the timeline, they turned to the victim's final moments. Ian Wilkinson, the lone survivor, had not eaten much of the dish. He had become ill soon after the meal, but not as severely as the others. He recalled feeling nauseous, but his symptoms were less intense, possibly because he had consumed less of the contaminated food. His account became critical, giving police an early lead. Erin had urged him to eat, but he resisted. Why did Erin push him so hard to consume the dish, even when he was reluctant? Detectives began sifting through Erin's past, searching for any connection that might explain why this tragedy occurred. What they found sent chills down their spines. Erin had been in the habit of foraging for wild mushrooms, something that seemed innocent enough, until they learned more about her relationship with toxic fungi. Was it possible that Erin had been using her knowledge of mushrooms to poison her guests? The more they looked, the more suspicious it became. They discovered that Erin had purchased a food dehydrator. At first, this seemed harmless, but when forensic experts examined it, they found remnants of death cap mushrooms inside. She had carefully dried and stored these deadly fungi. Had she used the dehydrator to prepare the mushrooms for her meal? The evidence was mounting. It appeared that Erin had been planning this for a while. And then the investigators made another shocking discovery: Erin's online activity. Searches related to mushrooms, poison, and toxicology filled her browsing history. She had scoured the internet for information on poisons, specifically death cap mushrooms. But why would someone who claimed to have accidentally poisoned her family be so knowledgeable about the dangers of mushrooms? The evidence was starting to speak for itself. Erin's actions, her history of foraging for dangerous mushrooms, her purchase of the dehydrator, her internet searches for poison, pointed to a chilling reality. This was no accident. But what was her motive? Was it revenge against her in-laws? Was she trying to escape a troubled marriage with Simon Patterson? Or was it something darker? As the investigation continued, Erin's behavior became even more suspicious. During police questioning, she was calm, almost detached. She had no tears, no signs of remorse. She maintained that it was all a tragic accident. But as detectives pieced together more of her history, it became increasingly clear that Erin had a motive, and the means, to carry out her plan. A particularly disturbing revelation came when police learned of Erin's estranged relationship with her husband, Simon Patterson. Simon had been poisoned several times in the past, though he had survived. On multiple occasions, Erin had prepared meals that left Simon violently ill. Each time, Simon suspected that he had been poisoned, but there was never enough evidence to prove it. Had these earlier poisoning attempts been testing grounds for what would eventually lead to the fatal lunch? Erin's estranged husband had documented these incidents. He had created a spreadsheet where he kept track of the meals Erin had prepared and the times he had fallen ill. Simon's health had been declining, and he had begun to fear for his life. His suspicions were clear: Erin was poisoning him. But why didn't he speak out sooner? When investigators reached out to Simon, he was able to confirm that he had experienced severe illness after consuming Erin's meals, though he had always chalked it up to bad luck or something in the food. Simon's suspicions about Erin's intentions had only deepened over time. But why had he never acted on them? Why hadn't he warned his family or even the authorities about the danger? It was a question that would haunt everyone involved. As police compiled their findings, death cap mushrooms, Erin's internet searches, her history of poisoning Simon, the case began to take shape. Erin was no longer just a grieving daughter-in-law, she was the prime suspect in the deaths of 3 innocent people. But could they prove it? The breakthrough came when investigators uncovered security footage from a local waste transfer station. Erin had disposed of the remains of the mushrooms she had foraged, the very mushrooms that had caused the deaths. Was this the final piece of the puzzle? But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. Erin Patterson had tried to get away with it before. Detectives uncovered a pattern. Erin's past was filled with stories of illness after meals, yet no one had connected the dots. Had she been testing her victims all along? Was this just a practice run for something far worse? As the investigation deepened, the question loomed larger. What drove Erin Patterson to commit such a horrifying act? Was it the desire for money? A deep-seated anger against her in-laws? Or something even more disturbing? As the investigation came to a close, Erin's calm demeanor in the face of such a horrific crime began to suggest something more calculated, something chilling. But before they could unravel the full truth, Erin's trial would begin. What would she say in her defense? Would she be able to talk her way out of this? Or would the evidence speak louder than her words? As we prepare to follow Erin Patterson's trial, one question remains. Was this a cold, calculated murder, or the result of something much more complex? Stay with us because what happens next could change everything. And don't forget to like and subscribe. This is a case you don't want to miss. The courtroom in Morwell, Victoria, was filled with anticipation as the trial of Erin Patterson, charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder, commenced. The prosecution, led by Crown Prosecutor Nanette Rogers SC, presented a compelling case against Patterson. They argued that Patterson had deliberately poisoned her estranged in-laws and their friend by serving them a beef Wellington laced with death cap mushrooms. Evidence was presented showing that Patterson had purchased a food dehydrator, which was later found to contain traces of the toxic mushrooms. Additionally, CCTV footage captured Patterson discarding the dehydrator at a local transfer station shortly after the incident. The prosecution contended that these actions were part of a calculated effort to conceal her involvement in the poisonings. In her defense, Patterson maintained that the deaths were a tragic accident. She claimed she had foraged for mushrooms in the wild and unknowingly included the toxic variety in the meal. However, the defense's arguments were met with skepticism as the prosecution presented evidence of Patterson's prior knowledge of death cap mushrooms and her attempts to mislead investigators. Digital forensic analysis revealed that Patterson had accessed information about death cap mushrooms online and had visited areas known for their presence. Furthermore, her refusal to allow her children to be tested for poisoning raised further questions about her intentions. The trial also delved into Patterson's relationship with her estranged husband, Simon Patterson. Simon testified about previous incidents where he had fallen ill after consuming meals prepared by Erin, leading him to suspect she had poisoned him. He recounted becoming seriously ill in 2021 after eating bolognese pasta she had prepared, followed by episodes in 2022 involving chicken curry and a vegetable wrap, which led to severe hospitalizations, including a 16-day coma and multiple emergency surgeries. The jury was also presented with previously suppressed evidence, including a 2020 Facebook post where Patterson claimed her cat had vomited after chewing a wild mushroom, despite not owning a cat. This post was initially ruled inadmissible but was later disclosed, adding to the mounting evidence against her. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict. Erin Patterson was found guilty of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. The judge, Justice Christopher Beale, scheduled a sentencing hearing for August 25, 2025, where Patterson faces a potential life sentence for each of the murders and 25 years for attempted murder. Her legal team has indicated plans to appeal the convictions. The case has left a lasting impact on the community of Leongatha and beyond, raising questions about trust, deception, and the lengths to which individuals will go to conceal their actions. As the sentencing date approaches, the story of Erin Patterson serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind closed doors. What drives a mother to poison her own family? To transform a Sunday lunch into a lethal trap? To lie, deceive, and manipulate with chilling precision? To understand Erin Patterson's actions, we must delve into her psyche, her past, and the complex web of emotions and motivations that led to the Leongatha mushroom murders. Background and early life. Erin Trudy Patterson, born Erin Scudder in 1974, grew up in Glen Waverley, Victoria. Raised in a family with a strong academic and military background, she was expected to excel. Despite this, she struggled with social interactions and often felt overshadowed by her accomplished family members. Her early years were marked by a sense of inadequacy and a desire to prove herself. This internal conflict may have contributed to her later actions. Mental health and personality traits. Throughout her life, Erin grappled with low self-esteem and a fluctuating sense of identity. She reported feelings of inadequacy and a lack of self-worth, which she believed were exacerbated by her physical appearance and weight issues. These struggles were compounded by a history of mental health challenges, including undiagnosed bipolar disorder, which can lead to impulsive behavior and difficulty managing emotions. Her emotional instability may have played a role in her decision to commit the murders. Psychologists have noted that Erin exhibited traits consistent with narcissistic personality disorder. Individuals with this condition often have an inflated sense of self-importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. Erin's actions, lying about her cancer diagnosis, poisoning her family, and attempting to manipulate the narrative, align with these traits. Her need for control and validation may have driven her to commit such heinous acts. Relationship dynamics and motive. Erin's relationship with her estranged husband, Simon Patterson, was tumultuous. Despite their separation, they maintained a cordial relationship for the sake of their children. However, tensions escalated when Simon filed a tax return listing himself as single, leading to a loss of government child support payments for Erin. This financial strain may have heightened her sense of betrayal and desperation. In the years leading up to the murders, Erin allegedly attempted to poison Simon multiple times using various dishes, including pasta, curry, and a sandwich wrap. Simon documented these incidents, noting severe illnesses and hospitalizations after consuming her meals. Despite these attempts, Erin's motivations remain unclear. Some speculate that she sought to regain control over Simon, while others believe she harbored deep-seated resentment towards him and his family. Behavior during and after the murders. On July 29, 2023, Erin hosted a lunch for her estranged in-laws and uncle-in-law, during which she served a beef Wellington laced with death cap mushrooms. 3 of the guests died within days, and 1 survived after a prolonged hospital stay. Despite the severity of the situation, Erin appeared composed and even played with her children after the meal. Her lack of visible distress raised suspicions among investigators. In the days following the murders, Erin lied to police about foraging for mushrooms and owning a food dehydrator. She claimed that the mushrooms were store-bought and that she had no knowledge of their toxicity. However, evidence later revealed that she had been researching poisonous mushrooms online and had used a food dehydrator to prepare the fatal meal. Her attempts to cover up the crime and manipulate the narrative suggest a calculated and deliberate mindset. Erin Patterson's actions were not the result of a momentary lapse in judgment but rather the culmination of deep-seated psychological issues, strained relationships, and a need for control and validation. Her ability to deceive, manipulate, and execute such a heinous act reflects a complex interplay of personality disorders, emotional instability, and a profound sense of entitlement. Understanding her psychological profile provides insight into the mind of a murderer and the factors that can drive an individual to commit such atrocities. As we reflect on Erin Patterson's case, we are reminded of the complexities of human behavior and the dark corners of the mind that can lead to unimaginable acts. It is a chilling reminder that evil can sometimes wear the guise of normalcy, and the most heinous crimes can be committed by those we least suspect. When Erin Patterson was arrested for the deaths of her in-laws, the community of Leongatha was left reeling. How could this tragedy happen in such a quiet, tight-knit town? The local residents, who once knew Erin as a friendly and seemingly normal homemaker, were now forced to reckon with the chilling reality of the woman behind the tragedy. The loss of 3 lives, Gail Patterson, her husband Don, and Heather Wilkinson, left a profound scar on the small town. These were people who had lived and worked in the community for decades. They weren't just victims. They were family, friends, and pillars of the local congregation. The shockwaves rippled through every corner of Leongatha, leaving many grappling with disbelief. How could someone like Erin Patterson, a mother and homemaker, be capable of something so dark? What drove her to poison her family with the very meal that should have brought them together? Ian Wilkinson, Heather's husband, who miraculously survived, was left to carry the burden of both grief and guilt. He had attended the lunch with his wife and her relatives, and though he had managed to survive, he watched as his loved ones perished. Ian had to live with the knowledge that he could have been the 4th victim, had he eaten more of the food. His recovery was not just physical, it was deeply emotional. How does one move on after experiencing such a horrifying betrayal? And how could Erin, a mother who had once been a part of their family, be capable of orchestrating such a devastating act? The families of the victims, as well as those close to Erin, were now left to pick up the pieces. The trial, when it began, was a spectacle that captivated the nation. Erin, once seen as a loving mother and wife, was now the face of one of the most bizarre and chilling cases of deliberate poisoning in recent memory. But what motivated her to carry out such a monstrous act? Was it a desire for revenge, a need for financial gain, or something else entirely? And what does this case say about the hidden dangers that may lurk within seemingly ordinary people? Could Erin Patterson's actions have been driven by a deep-seated resentment toward her in-laws, Or was it a carefully calculated plan to rid herself of family members who were, in her mind, obstacles to her freedom? It was revealed during the trial that Erin had been in the midst of a divorce from her estranged husband, Simon Patterson, and had been financially dependent on her in-laws. Was her choice to poison them a desperate attempt to break free from the shackles of an unhappy marriage and her financial struggles? What truly set Erin on this path? According to some experts, Erin's behavior pointed to more than just a failed marriage or financial distress. Her meticulous planning, using a dehydrator to preserve the deadly death cap mushrooms, her knowledge of foraging for mushrooms, and her repeated attempts to poison her husband, paint a chilling portrait of a woman who had carefully thought out her actions. Yet, despite the premeditation, Erin maintained throughout the trial that the deaths were accidental, insisting that she never intended to kill anyone. As Erin's trial continued, a critical moment came when the prosecution revealed disturbing evidence of Erin's earlier attempts to poison her estranged husband, Simon. Over a period of time, Simon had suffered from unexplained illnesses after consuming her meals. Was this a warning sign that had been ignored? Erin's own mother, in an emotional testimony, revealed that Erin had been acting suspiciously in the weeks leading up to the dinner, taking trips to local areas known for wild mushrooms. She'd been searching online for information about death cap mushrooms. This revelation raised even more questions. Was Erin truly unaware of the consequences of her actions, or had she been fully aware of the potential for death? As the jury deliberated, the entire nation watched in anticipation. How could this story, with its disturbing twists and turns, possibly end? The idea that a mother would intentionally serve poisoned food to her family was incomprehensible to many. Yet, Erin Patterson had not only poisoned her loved ones, she had destroyed an entire family in one fatal meal. For some, it was the ultimate betrayal. For others, it was the act of a woman driven to the edge by personal turmoil, resentment, and possibly even a calculated desire for financial independence. The final verdict was delivered, and Erin Patterson was convicted of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. The sentence was handed down: life in prison without the possibility of parole. But even as she was led away, questions remained. Was justice truly served? What more could have been done to prevent such a horrific crime? And how does a community come to terms with the loss of 3 cherished lives at the hands of one of their own? As we reflect on this tragic case, we are reminded that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who appear the most ordinary. What do you think? Was Erin Patterson a woman driven to madness by a lifetime of personal failure, or did she plan this massacre with cold and calculating precision? Could anyone have seen the warning signs? Let us know your thoughts. As Erin Patterson stands convicted of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder, the question lingers in the air: what drove her to this horrific act? Was it an attempt to settle old scores, or did something deeper, something darker, lie beneath the surface of her carefully crafted family facade? Erin had carefully planned the deadly lunch, using her knowledge of foraging and possibly years of poisoned meals to finish what she had started. But what was her endgame? Could there have been another motive we haven't yet uncovered? And how much of it was tied to her fractured marriage, her history of poisoning her husband, and the bitter relationship with her in-laws? This case leaves us with chilling questions about trust, betrayal, and how easily someone can disguise the truth. As we look back on Erin's life, the signs were there, but could anyone have seen them coming? And, most hauntingly, what was going through the minds of those who sat down at her table that fateful day? Did they know something was wrong? The Leongatha mushroom murders may have been solved in court, but the deeper questions remain unanswered. What do you think? Was Erin Patterson acting alone, or did others unknowingly play a role in this tragedy? Could anyone have stopped her before it was too late? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We want to know what you believe really happened that day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on more true crime stories that will keep you questioning the world around you. And if you found this story chilling, share it with others, because in this case the truth is still unraveling, one detail at a time. Stay with us as we continue to uncover the dark side of humanity.